We are here to make a new type of news.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Making news just for you. It's Monday, November 13th here in Seoul. I'm Song Yejin filling in for Shin-Yin, and you're watching News Generation. Joining me in the studio today is Walter Lee.
Lovely to be here.
Happy Monday, and Choi Ji-hee.
Good morning, Yejin.
Now, both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. Now, as usual, let's start off this Monday with the news feed, which covers different hashtags and news items that have been trending on social media over the past 24 hours. First of all, Hallasan, the tallest mountain in South Korea, welcomed its first snowfall of the winter yesterday. Now that's 18 days earlier than last year. Snow on Hallasan Mountain is regarded as the actual beginning of winter, as it's located in one of the country's warmest regions, Jeju Island. So most parts of the country woke up to temperatures below 0 degrees Celsius this morning, with the mercury hitting minus 3 degrees Celsius here in the capital. The nation's weather agency forecasts it'll get warmer from Wednesday. Now moving on to the cultural front, is the Marvel Cinematic Universe's latest movie, The Marvels, a hit or not? Its opening day earnings in North America were the second lowest for a Marvel movie, grossing $21.5 million on Friday. Although the precise figures for the opening weekend are yet to be revealed, it's expected to be the lowest grossing of any MCU film. However, it's a different story here in Korea. The movie has held the top spot in the box office since its premiere last Wednesday, and it has grabbed a lot of attention, with Korean actor Park Seo-joon playing the role of Prince Yeon. And staying in culture news, the Grammy Awards, one of the most prestigious music accolades in the world, revealed its list of nominees for 2024 last Friday. Nominations for a total of 94 categories were unveiled. American singer-songwriter SZA took the lead with 9 nominations. Taylor Swift made history by becoming the first artist to earn 7 nominations for the coveted Song of the Year category. But what has been drawing attention is the absence of K-pop artists on the list. Now, this is the first time since 2019 that no Korean artists have made it onto the list. So here in the studio, I would like to ask you, what do you think about this year's Grammy nomination list?
Well, to be honest, it is quite disappointing
Right.
because for the past couple of years, we've seen K-pop artists making it to the list. And we've always really looked forward to this moment. It was a very celebratory moment for us as well, because we would be waiting to see which K-pop artist would make us all proud
Right.
by making it onto the list. And we've seen BTS win the Grammys and be nominated multiple times, but this year they're not promoting fully because some of its members are in the army or either have gone solo. So I really hope that we can see K-pop artists returning to the Grammys nomination list next year.
That's what I really hope, to see K-pop artists back on the nominations list next year. But Walter, what's your point on this?
I mean, it's a shame that we don't have any K-pop songs like on the nominees list, but we must remember that the Grammys is like the Oscars of music.
Right.
So therefore, we should be trying to put out the best of the best music Korea has to offer. And sadly, this year, it just couldn't just top Taylor Swift. We as a nation shouldn't be let down, because there is huge competition out there,
Right.
and it's already a massive achievement that K-pop has already been on the list in the past. So yeah, it's a shame, but there's always next year.
Right, there's always next year, and not being on the nomination list are not all to prove that K-pop artists have released great music. We've seen stellar performances by other K-pop artists, not only BTS, but other groups like New Jeans, TXT, and many more. So we'll see who the lucky winners are for next year's Grammys on February 4th, US time. And that was our news feed for this Monday. So we're now going to switch gears and move on to our main discussion topic of the day. Today, we're going to talk about something I'm sure most of us use on a daily basis, and that is public transportation, more specifically subways. So here's my AI voice secretary with the details.
5.1 million. That's the daily average number of passengers who rode the subway in Seoul last year, making it the most widely used method of public transport. Globally recognized as one of the best, South Korea's subway system boasts a stellar reputation for its user-friendly experience, cleanliness, and service frequency. But it still suffers from overcrowding during rush hour. So much so that some trains have earned the notorious nickname of helltrains. To tackle this, Seoul Metro recently unveiled a new measure aimed at reducing this congestion, which has sparked debate within the country.
So today on NewsGen, we're going to dive into the highs and lows of Seoul Metro's recent announcement. And I think that we'll have a lot to talk about given that millennials and Gen Zs are the primary demographic riding the subway daily. So let's start off with taking a look at what Seoul Metro is putting on the table.
Well, the whole idea is to remove cabin chairs from two of the most highly congested subway lines. Those are number 4 and 7 in the capital Seoul, because we really need to come up with solutions to resolve the issue of overcrowding in these transportations, especially during commute hours. And to address the issue of overcrowding, according to the Seoul Metropolitan Transportation Authority, now the peak crowding levels on these two lines, line 4 and 7, they're 193% and 164% respectively. So in other words, there can be up to twice as many people as the seats available. And the decision was based on the authority's observation that the passengers would be more comfortable and have more space to stand in these cabins without the chairs. Now, this would also allow more passengers to board on the train, thereby, of course, reducing the waiting times for these commuters as well. The move was met, however, with mixed reactions from the public, with some expressing concern about the safety of passengers if these cabin seats were removed, although it was just for some compartments. And others welcomed the idea that it would contribute, although it can't be the fundamental solution, it could contribute to resolving the issue of overcrowding.
Right, and because this is a trial run, we can make more improvements in the future. So this was the latest proposal that was given by Seoul Metro, but I heard that this is not the first solution that Seoul Metro has proposed, Walter.
Yeah, that's correct. So, I've sadly lived on both 4 and 7, so I know the improvements that they need to have. It seems like a no-brainer for the government, like more passengers up the trains. It makes sense, but that still didn't help with the overcrowding situation. And you and I have discussed this before on the show, but there have been various attempts to reduce the amount of passengers on the subways, including, chairs being placed in the middle of the carriage. I think this was a massive fail as it was actually harder to get in and out of the carriages. Now, some companies have given their employees the option to come in earlier as well, or leave later on the commute times, and this means they have to leave later or leave earlier when they go home. Now, the concept of chairless carriages isn't anything new with subway lines, including line 7. I have had the front carriage reserved for bikes, and I've seen the front carriage reserved for bikes, and I've been there before. But yes, this is not the answer, I think, in my opinion.
Right, so we just took a look at what Seoul Metro is proposing, and the reason why we brought up this topic today is because it has stirred quite a lot of controversy. It's been making headlines not only here in Korea, but around the world. So here in the studio, I would like to ask your personal stance on this issue.
Well, I personally believe removing some of the seats of these two particular lines, it could be a good trial, and it could really provide more space for the passengers, and I'm sure it will help resolve the issue of overcrowding during commutes as well. But to ensure that elderly passengers and pregnant individuals are not inconvenienced, I think we should retain some of the chairs that we have at the corner of the compartments, usually near the doors, so that they are not inconvenienced. And many find themselves in a hurry to get to work.
Right.
So it will be helpful if some of these middle compartments have the chairs removed. And do you remember those trams in airports? I'm sure you've been to international.
Yeah, the small ones.
Yeah, the small ones during transit.
Right.
And those, if you realize, they don't have the chairs. They only have the sidebars. And I think they're enough for people to just stand and maybe lean towards that. Yeah.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, those trams or small trains in the airport, I remember that although there were a lot of people on the train, I've never felt that it was as packed as subways. So I think that's a really good point. So those were kind of like the pros of this proposal, but I heard that there are a lot of opposing arguments as well, Walter.
Yeah, so for me, I actually see it as more of a problem. Like, first off, people who live in Seoul, we go by this 빨리빨리 society, meaning fast-moving, fast-paced society. people want to get from one place to another as quick as possible, even if that means squeezing themselves into a carriage, driving faster, breaking road rules, etc. Now, the chairs act like a strong barrier to reduce the number of people to be shoved in. So humans, on the other hand, if you take these seats out, they aren't so strong, and therefore you have more of a chance of putting more people in the carriage in an unsafe way.
Right.
This will be terrifying, like for all, especially if, God forbid, an accident were to occur. It's a lot less, I guess it would be much harder to get them out of the train. And can you imagine the summers when everyone is sweaty and smelling bad and we're all packed into the one subway? I just don't think I would like it at all.
I mean, that's the last thing that I would like to experience, people packed in the subway during the hot, humid weather. But the good thing is that Seoul Metro is starting this trial run from January, which is winter. So hopefully if they continue with this policy by summer, there will be some improvements. So you two guys made very strong, valid points. And I think that the heated debates arise from the widespread issue of overcrowding during rush hours, because this is a problem not just shared in Korea, but globally around the world. So let's first talk about Korea, T. Could you walk us through our country's decades-long battle with congested subways?
Sure. Well, 30 years ago, we actually had this special job to resolve this overcrowding issue. And we had people called the pushmen. So literally what they would do is to push people forcibly into the compartments of public transportations to make sure that everybody can get on board, and to make sure that as many people as possible can get into one of these transportations. Now, it's something that it's really hard to imagine right now, because we wouldn't be pushing each other.
Definitely.
Although we end up pushing each other inevitably because there are so many people. We don't actually have people with those jobs, right? And one other issue, though, was whether seats should be reserved during the commute hours for the elderly and the pregnant ladies as well, that I mentioned briefly earlier. And also in the past, there was also a campaign for riding the subways with etiquette. So people would have to avoid wearing their backpacks on their back and hold them in the front, because I've literally been hit by one of these backpacks before. They can become weapons if you're in a crowded space.
Really painful.
Very painful. Or sitting with your legs together when you're on one of these seats, and other etiquettes that people should know to make sure that they can use these transportations conveniently without causing any discomfort to others.
Right. So pushmen, campaigns, and also backpacks, wearing backpacks in the front. So Korea has definitely done a lot to get rid of congested subways, but what's the situation like overseas?
Well, I know that a lot of Asian countries have trouble with congestion during rush hour. I mean, like Jihi mentioned, the pushmen, that actually went viral at one point, as it was unbelievable to see. It was in Japan. So I don't know if they still have the jobs there, but I know that it's still common. So Japan have also, started folding up chairs, which I've seen here in Seoul as well, where they have the foldable chairs. I believe the New York subway once operated without seats as well, but I know the New York subway is also infamous for being so dirty and disgusting and whatever. But if you live in New York, no offense, but it's got a global reputation of being quite bad. So
So let's just expand on what you've said. So we also asked our viewers whether they ride the subway often and how they would feel if there were no seats on the subway. So here's what 3 of them had to say. First of all, Benny says, I rode the subway in Hong Kong back in 2007. We will have the subway in our country in a few years, but it's uncomfortable for me to have no seats. Tasmia says, I've never ridden the subway, but I would definitely say that no seats is always inconvenient. It can never be helpful. Marwan says, honestly, I prefer to sit in the subway, as some destinations may take about an hour. I would suggest removing the seats during the weekday commuting hours. So this was what our viewers had to say. Obviously, they had very varying opinions. So let's further expand our discussion and include in our discussion a young person who has experienced subway systems in different parts of the world. We'll be right back, so stay tuned. So let's now connect live to Melanie Han. She's a millennial currently residing in London and visiting Korea, and she's also lived in Boston before, so she's experienced subway systems in different countries, at least 3. So welcome to the show, Melanie.
Thanks. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. So first of all, having experienced subway systems across various countries, what distinctive features have you observed in the Korean subway system?
So I feel like the Korean subway system in a lot of ways is very well established. Things are fast, things are clean, it's very convenient. But as you guys mentioned earlier, it can get so crowded. In fact, just the other day, I was 45 minutes late to a dinner with friends because I just physically could not get onto the subway for 3 rides consecutively. So that is definitely something that is very distinctive about Korean subways compared to the Boston T or even the London Tube.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. I've also, been put late because of the subways, especially on my line that I live on at the moment. They always have the station that I go at as the last stop, so we have to wait for the next train and wait for the next train. It's really inconvenient, but these are sort of first world problems. But what's your take on Seoul Metro's decision to remove the seats on certain subway trains? And do you think this move will contribute to easing congestion or not?
I think there are a lot of things that could come out of this new trial that they're going to implement in January. On one hand, I think that it could ease congestion and definitely, shove more people into each carriage. But as you mentioned earlier, Walter, I think it could cause some dangerous situations or scenarios for people that could get hurt. But on the other hand, yeah, physically, it will allow for more people onto the carriages. I believe that perhaps increasing the frequency of the actual trains will probably be the best solution in order to ease congestion. But I'm curious to see what will happen with this trial and see if it will work or if it won't.
All right, Melanie, well, are there any other aspects of the subway experience in Korea do you think could be improved? And is there anything you'd like to see changed or enhanced in our subway stations?
Yeah, I think one thing actually, so I'm here with my partner who's a foreigner, and one thing we have noticed is that you can't upload money onto your T-Money card without having to use cash. So having systems where foreigners or people that aren't using cash are able to upload more money onto their T-Money cards, I think would be really helpful. I also do think that it is part of Korean culture where everyone is just in a rush to go everywhere. And so whether you are bumping into people or stepping on people's toes or literally just shoving people out of the way to get into the carriage yourself, I think a little bit of, a kinder society and better etiquette would probably be helpful as a whole.
All right. Thank you so much, Melanie, for your valuable insights.
Thank you.
So I guess time will really tell if removing seats from subway carriages really eases the congestion, but I see this as a beginning of a much needed change because, as we mentioned earlier, congested subways are a big headache, not only for Korea, around the world. And we've seen a lot of improvements in the Korean subway system ever since it was launched in 1974. So I think that we'll get to see more improvements when the trial run starts. So before we wrap up our discussion, I would like to personally ask you guys, what changes in the Korean subway system have you found to be particularly convenient or helpful? And moving forward, what would you like to see more in the future?
Well, I want to comment on what Melanie mentioned before I add on to what improvements I'd like to see. She mentioned campaigns and etiquettes for the riders. I mentioned earlier that in the past we've had those campaigns, hold your backpack in front of you, etc.
Right.
But I feel like we should have more of these campaigns so that people won't be pushing each other or forcing themselves into packed compartments. And other than that, I'd like to, having transit cards, this was a change in Seoul and other areas as well. Having transit cards that would take you anywhere and transfer you to other public transportations was very convenient. And other than that, I think it will be better if we can see the arrival times, exact or accurate arrival times of these trains on the screens. Because right now we only have the screens with trains just moving towards a certain station. So it'll be nice if you could see the actual time because every minute matters for commuters. So those, and also the heating and cooling systems. We have great heating and cooling systems, but it'll be nicer if we could control them easily as well.
Right, so campaigns, transit cards, accurate arrive times, and heating and cooling system management for Jihi. And so what about you, Walter?
Oh, how much time do we have? I could be spending all day talking about what we could improve in the subway, but let me talk about what they have improved that I find really helpful is the tourist friendliness that they have. Now, they speak 4 different languages on the subways, I believe, and that's Korean, English, Japanese, and Chinese. So knowing that we get a lot of people from those countries has actually helped a lot. Although I wish, especially someone who speaks English, they would at least try and make the name of the station in Korean similar to the name in English, because example like Hongik University has a completely different name in Korean, right? So that could be confusing to some. They could change that a little bit as well. And as well as they show screens at the top of the subway of the carriages of which are full and which are not. So green would be free, orange would be, or orange or yellow, it would be like kind of half full, and then the red is the full one, right? That's an amazing improvement because it gives people the opportunity to go, I'm a little uncomfortable in this position, so what I'll do is when it goes to the next stop, just quickly jump out and go towards that carriage. Now, where they need to improve, I think it definitely comes down, as Melanie mentioned, more frequency of the trains because especially on line 4. Line 4 people, if you're listening to me or the people who run line 4, I mean, it's okay, but it could be a lot better by, just increasing those trains a lot more because I know I've waited 20 to 30 minutes just to get on the subway and it's really frustrating for me.
Yeah, so based on all the good suggestions you guys gave, I hope that we could see more improvements in our Korean subway system and also subway systems around the world. Now, unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today, but we'll be here every day from 9:30 to 10 a.m. Korea time, bringing you more topics young people are talking about. Special thanks to Walter Lee.
Lovely to be here.
And Choi Ji-hee.
Thank you.
And this was Song Yu-jin filling in for Shin Yeun. Yeun will be back in the studio from tomorrow. Thank you everyone so much for watching. We are
News Generation.